o'clock, we will stand for the prayer of the resolution. Father, in heaven, we thank you right now for this day. We thank you for what this day is going. Pray right now, Father, to do this. We go through this meeting today. We be served by the people of this county, this state, and this country now. Protect those that stand around the world and protect us that we might have freedom. Thank you right now for what you've done thus far. Thank you for where you're carrying us to, when you brought us from. We ask and bless you now. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. Unto the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Just before we start our meeting, we always have a few housekeepers. The conference line has been set up for those who like to call in, and the number is 1-917-1022. The access code is 32347 pound. This is not a toll-free number that may be subject to your long distance plan. When the chairperson opens the meeting for public comment, please follow the instructions. Dial 5, the moderator will unmute your line when it's your turn to speak, and notify you by announcing your last 4 digits of your telephone number. Please announce your name and address, and you will be allowed to speak for 3 minutes. Any person wishing to address the board regarding an agenda item will be given 3 minutes to speak for each comment, and a commenter may speak only once to an item. Okay. With that, we will go to our agenda items. The approval of the agenda.
Second.
Second, all in favor, say aye. Okay, on the consent agenda, is anyone like to take anything on the consent agenda? Approve or disapprove?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion second. All in favor? All right, we will go to bids and public hearing, number 6 on this item, on the agenda. The board to hold a public hearing set for this date at 9 a.m. or soon thereafter as possible to hear an application for a special permit mud bogging. So at this time, we have a public hearing. Is there anyone from the public would like to speak to this particular item?
Mr. Chairperson, if I could just, for clarification for the board and the public, I have an updated map that I have passed out to each commissioner that shows adjoining properties and the distance from the mud bog activities. From what I understand, there is an adjacent property owner who has signed a 10-year waiver, Mr. Fernandez. It is not included in the packet, but my understanding was that it was in the packet for October. That would, from what Ms. Larson has presented, that's the only adjoining property owner who would be required to sign a waiver, because the other additional property owners are adjoining from the roadway, which from what it is now exempt per our ordinance from obtaining that waiver. Is that correct, Mr. Bishop?
Yes.
Okay, so Mr. Fernandez, 10-year waiver.
10-year waiver. He signed a 10-year waiver.
He did?
It's not in your packet,
Okay.
but that's our understanding.
Okay.
And also, we did work with Iron Horse for the last event to ask them to work with DOT for some traffic signage. And the sheriff's office has asked, and we have a representative here, that we make sure that we ask them to work with DOT to display appropriate electronic signage or whatever that it would be needed on Highway 19, because the event really has grown. There's quite a potential traffic impact.
Okay. Okay, there's no one from Iron Horse here to speak today.
Ms. Larson is here.
Ms. Lawson?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yep, everything, we were in contact with the DOT to get those signages taken care of for March.
Okay.
Perfect.
Is there anyone else to speak? Sheriff?
For the signage, as long as we can have additional signs for right lane mud bog and left lane through traffic.
Okay.
Those additional signs that were needed.
So with all this we got done, there shouldn't be anything on the Iron Horse people, or the Iron Horse.
They have provided the map that I requested to demonstrate where the activities are compared to the adjoining property owners. Now, staff doesn't go on and check, but we do require a map be submitted with the application.
Okay.
Ms. Larson has, stated that she has 10-year waivers from any impacted adjoining property owners,
Okay.
and has provided the statements for sanitary sewer, EMS, fire, and security.
Okay. I see that in the document.
Yes, sir.
So do we need to close this public hearing? Is there anyone from the commission would like to speak for?
We're looking to move forward with approving the permit today, right?
Well, yes, sir. I don't know if you want to make it contingent upon staff securing, the signed waivers. That's the only thing that's not in the packet is any of the
I
signed
can email
waivers,
it
but
to
we
you right
can,
now. I can email it to Luanda right now.
yeah.
Yeah. If there's no further discussion, I'm ready to make a motion.
Okay, motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Motion second, all in favor, saying aye? Aye. Okay. All right. We will go to item number 7. The board will hold a public hearing set for this date at 9:05, as soon as we have it. Possible, notifying the public of possible grant submission. Number 2, the application for Florida Department of Transportation, SDOT, Transportation Alternate Program, TAP, for 2028 funding cycle for the construction of the sidewalk along Key Beach Drive and Johnson Scripton and Ash Street on Jefferson. Okay. This is a public hearing. Is there anyone to speak for or against that? Number 7. That's the funding cycle for 2028. Okay, come forward, please.
Shannon Miller, I live at Keaton Beach. I don't think sidewalks would solve the problem that y'all trying to solve, people being in the road. I think speed bumps would be a more, I know people don't want it, but it's a 27 or 24 day, or 24 hours, 7 day a week solve to the problem. Police can't stay down there all the time. Get people out of the road, you still got people gonna be speeding. The sidewalks, that's all it's gonna do, it's not gonna deter any speeding at all. Another thing is sidewalks gonna take up what limited parking people have in their yards now. It's gonna take up anywhere from 10 to 12 feet on whichever side of the road you decide to go with. Then the police is gonna be down there, if you park on the sidewalk, you're gonna get tickets. I know the beach wasn't designed for sidewalks, but at the same time, you know, what do? In Tallahassee, they got signs that says share the highway with pedestrians. You know, it's all about the same. I think that would be a bad idea on that part. If they're gonna do anything, they need to fix the marina road on the back where it's not flooded, and do the same back there. If they're in the same predicament we are on the front road, land-wise, if you put sidewalks in, then you're limiting even more space. So I think there needs to be something else looked at there. And you're also proposing, 2028 and getting this done? That's 6 years away. You can put speed bumps in tomorrow. You can order them, put the neoprene ones in, or you can put permanents in. If y'all looking at something 6 years down the road, you know, we look at it now. That's, you know, pretty much the way I see it.
I think the vision is speed wise, we've addressed the speed, but it's, sidewalk is to keep people off the road, I think, so to speak.
Right.
When folks are, I mean, we've addressed the speed as far as the speed bumps you're talking about, but we didn't approve there, so we just, the sidewalk is to get people out of the roadway.
Right. But you understand what I'm saying as far as, then also, if you're gonna do the sidewalk, the state does, they're gonna have to be ADA compliance. You can't be more than 2% from side to side. Side towards the road is gonna be almost the height of the road, a little more, a little less. Side towards people's houses is gonna have to be lifted up to maintain the 2%. Then that's gonna add more drainage of water on the people's property. People with the narrow property, it's gonna make it steeper here one of their houses. Then the environmental part of it coming across, you gotta work on the bridge part of it, I mean, it'd be a big thing, and then like I say, the limited property we got to use now will be down to none. Some people don't even have hardly any. You know, once you get down past where the marina was, if you work with the light poles out, you know, you don't have any part. 15, 20 feet at the max. There's already, you know, everybody down there struggles when they got family coming in for the weekends or holidays, there's hardly no parking anyhow. So if you take that away from the sidewalk in, you know, then of course the police have got to enforce people parking on the sidewalk, and that's why you put it in for people to use it. Then you're gonna get tickets for homeowners, and I just don't think it's appropriate. And you're still not solving the problem of people speeding. 90% of the people that live down there or go down there, when somebody's walking, they slow down and go around. It's the 5 or 10% that don't. And you get people out of the road, they still won't go fast.
I didn't get your name.
Shannon Miller. Yes, sir.
Yeah, and what's the overall feeling of people looking down the street? I'm sure you've talked to a lot of them.
I'm pretty sure
We don't want it.
they don't want it. That's why most of them in here for that.
And all of them are against the sidewalk.
Yes,
Yes.
Against.
There's only 3 or 4 people that walk down the road anyway.
Yes, there's not that many.
There's not much traffic.
I mean, we understand the
During
danger
scallop season.
of like what was going on with, you know, Old Dixie Highway. But, you know, it took several years to do that, and 6 years down the road is not the way to look at it. You put speed bumps in tomorrow. Or, you know, and you can do a temporary and see how it is.
Years ago, they had people up on that road.
And it's you're trying to deter the speeding and get people out of the road, but the sidewalks, I mean, if you don't do nothing for the speed, you know, you can't, the people still, there's nothing, you know, they're still gonna go.
How many people gonna complain about them cars hitting people and waking them up at night?
Well, I got a permanent one right there where I'm at, that bridge, people hit it, when they come back pulling their boat, they go slow. I've seen it throw boats off trailers, trailers off trucks. I mean, I would rather have, you know, we've already got one there, what's 1 or 2 more gonna hurt to deter the problem? It's just, I just don't think you know, Wayne and them can't control it all the time. They've been real good the last 2 years about having control down there a lot. But it's 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, you feel people, you know, people coming by. And, but it's all day long here. Usually when there's a lot of people out, they don't speed as much. But they can't control it all the time. You know, it's just not feasible.
I agree with Shannon, the bridge is a mess, it's been that way for 6 years, and it wakes me up every time a boat goes across that bridge, because it's like a ski jump.
Yeah. But once they go, they realize when they come back, 90% of them slow down.
In the last couple of storms, the northwest corner of that bridge has got Jim Jarvis, 2147 Keaton Beach Road.
Okay.
I don't want to mess up the
Come on up here, Jim.
The northwest corner of all of your riprap is falling in the canal, and that the recent storms have done that. so there's exposed piping that's about to probably be compromised as well. And the bridge is a mess. It is, like a ramp. They did a little bit to it here not too long ago in the village, but it's about back where it was. And then the maintenance on the sides, unless the homeowners do it, it's not being done. So there's weeds growing and that sort of thing. So the bridge is a real concern. And, like you said, I've seen boats jump off trailers right there. Somebody came by the other day and hit it, and a plate came off the roof and scattered all down the highway, or glass all down the highway. So I'm not sure about my position on the sidewalks, but I generally agree with everybody. There's not a lot of room.
What about the big or Tracy Giddens? Back in Tallahassee, they have those big wide speed bumps. And I mean, nobody loves them, but they don't kill your car. They wouldn't kill a boat. Something like that. Could we consider something in that?
Were you gonna say something? Yeah.
No, sir.
Okay.
I'm William Simpson of Turkey Beach. I agree with everything that everybody else said, 100%. So there's no big review. Thank you.
I have a question about incorporating the sidewalk around the bridge. How would that even work? You got to cross the bridge with the sidewalk.
They would have to put a, the engineer can tell you, but they probably have to put a dock, like a walkway beside the bridge, wouldn't they? Yeah.
And then what would keep a fence or something?
Yeah, could y'all explain the sidewalk to us? Maybe that would help.
Yeah, I'll meet y'all.
Okay, so I'll try to address everything that I've heard sequentially. First of all and foremost was the timing of it. So I feel like I'm talking to y'all very with respect to the timing of it, of when the funds are being asked for, and this is something that the board is presented annually of these programs that are funded, but because they are state dollars coming into, they're usually several years out. So when we see the opportunity for them, that's what we're planning for. We understand the importance of it being something that needs to be addressed more of a near term. Unfortunately, we don't have vast resources of local dollars to do this stuff, so we rely heavily on state dollars. And most everything that you see through here that comes with respect to infrastructure is almost always a 5-year lookout. So just like you're thinking, well, these are things that need to be addressed now, we try to conceptualize, okay, what do we need to address 5 years from now so that we get things sequenced to where they don't degrade to the point where they fall apart now before the money becomes available. And you'll see that on the very next item. It's not necessarily one that is in the sequence of things, but because of the condition and importance of it, I believe it needs to be more of a higher priority. The second thing was, and I may not be very popular behind me, but I concur with you wholeheartedly with respect to the available footprint and space that's through there. We did just put one in on the, from Plantation back up to Jefferson Street. That's a 40-foot right-of-way. When you think about 11-foot roadway, and you got 20 foot, you got 9 foot left, you put it 3 foot away, it's a 5-foot sidewalk, you got 1 foot away from the right-of-way. So it's very difficult at best to put something in that has to tie back into any difference of the elevation that's on the backside. With respect to how we get across water courses, there's multiple ways to do that. If you're fortunate enough to have sufficient shoulder where you can fit your pedestrian way, then we can put a railing between the two to separate the vehicle and the pedestrian traffic. If you don't, then you kind of jump on the outside of the structure and put a pedestrian bridge, or we would extend that. One of the two. We've used all means of it. It's just really more economics, whatever's available. Yeah.
What side are y'all talking about? Have y'all even gotten that far?
Yes, I had to put together some aerial maps. I don't know that they have necessarily,
Okay.
but, you know, from the grant application perspective, we have to put in, generally, here's an aerial overview of where we're gonna go and what is an overall cost. Cost is really gonna be dependent on where you put it. My thought is that I would, and I've even thought about it since I submitted the map, I would almost wanna start at Marina Road and run across, along in front of the boat ramp and then turn and stay on that east side so that I can minimize my roadway crossings with pedestrian traffic, to stay on it and hug all the way down until I get to Hodges Park, to the point that they wind up, you basically are slowing down almost to a stop as you enter into the park area. And then our overall Hodges Park plan has a sidewalk that comes over right there just below Mr. Sadusky's place, so I try to tie those two sidewalks so that you can have basically two destinations on each end and minimize how many times we have people out in the road. And the last thing I would say is the context of this application has not been focused on speed. Okay, understand that this is nothing more than a transportation alternative program that was focused on pedestrian mobility. So it was a sidewalk aspect that was requested. There were several alternatives that were put together. The board then reviewed those and they selected the ones that they felt was the most appropriate. This was one of those. There's one other, I believe is all we have, is just the two that we're submitting, with the hopes that we might get one of them.
Well, golf carts outnumber people on the road. So why do, where the golf carts are now gonna be on the sidewalk if that is the plan?
That's not illegal though.
But that's illegal, so then that's another, you know what I mean, there's more golf carts than people.
And I would almost, again, I'm probably not the most popular one behind me when I start talking about that, but if you recall, there are ordinances that allow the golf carts within that community to be in the road.
Right.
So I don't know that they would necessarily see a need to get out of the road because they have a legal means to be in it now. The sidewalk would be more for your walking traffic, but Shannon, you're right on point. It is, I think, an enforcement nightmare to try to say that you're going to have all of those vehicles along that roadway and tell them, okay, guys, you can't park on here, because you've negated the whole purpose of the sidewalk when they walk down and then have to get out in the road and then come past that vehicle and do the same thing. Not to mention, we thicken the cross-section of the sidewalks when we have vehicle crossings. There's vehicle crossing at every driveway. So a vast majority of that would be a 6-inch sidewalk, which does nothing more than drive your cost up. So we do think about these things. Our responsibility is to present the technical matter to the board. The board's a legislative body, they get the opportunity to make those decisions, so that's why they've opened it up to hear from you guys before I think they make their final decision after this public hearing.
What if we just added additional signage, you know?
That's what I said, share the highway
Yeah.
with pedestrians. They do it all over Tallahassee. Going into 19, which is a major highway going into Tallahassee, there's signs that say share with pedestrians.
I don't disagree that that's probably a nice way to inform people. That's better than nothing, I would say.
Or lightage, or street lighting.
I think they pursued some of that, I don't know the actual resolution of it, but I think there was, like most things, there were some for and against it, and I don't know that it just actually ended up as being something they installed.
Because right there, like where me and Miss Pam live, and some others right there, Mr. Jim and them, if they put a sidewalk through there, I mean, it's gonna be, we're short on property too. Some of them's not, some of them are, depending on where you're at.
I agree.
But it's gonna add a lot more incline going down to your property, and then you're taking up more space.
True, and if you get back to some of the, it seems the crux of your thoughts are focused on the speeding of it. And Tracy, I agree with you in that I'm not a proponent, and it's always, when you stick in a speed bump, it's great for a second, and then as damaging and as abrupt as it is, people tend to lose love with it really quick. The speed tables, which are the extended ones, and you do it strategically. you know, truthfully, if I were to be redoing Beach Road, I'd put one right there at the boat ramp where the pedestrian crosswalk is, because it is very easy for someone to just walk out all of a sudden, and markings on the pavement aren't as noticeable as you know you've got to stop before you bottom out. The same might be true at the old marina site, where you have a lot of the RV traffic there, I think, from Spirito's Place and all, that you might want to put one there kind of midway down. If the bridge, which I know it as the humpback bridge, so maybe it's working.
Well, that's an automatic speed bump there, I can tell you, like them gyms do.
And so that may be more strategic, that, you know, if we slow them down here, they've slowed down because of the bridge, there's not a lot of opportunity to speed back up before you're at the end of the roadway. That might be something that, you know, the board wants to put on the capital improvement plan. But just understand that that context is outside of what we're talking about today, that we're talking about sidewalks. You've given your input with respect to where you don't think it's the best location. I think that's what they're gonna use to make their decisions.
I think the tabletop would be a better idea really than speed bump.
Yeah, we don't really want speed bumps.
The
If we do
tabletop-
anything, we do speed tables.
Yeah, and I looked the other day, where you're talking about be good places for them.
Yes, sir, I agree.
There's a little less people right there, and staggered just about where it would slow people down, so.
Yes, sir.
Yes. Okay. And what else?
We do have one caller.
Okay.
It's, caller 0029.
Caller 0029. State your name, please.
Oh, this is Millie. I'm just on the line waiting to see what y'all want to do.
Okay, well, we haven't made a decision yet.
Your first speak to.
Okay. Just hold up, we have another item on this agenda. Commissioner?
Yes, I'd like to speak to the sidewalk in Keaton Beach. Safety has been a concern of mine for many years down there. We do own a place there, we're not there very much, but when I am there, I'm greatly concerned about safety. There's a lot of speeding down the road, and there are a lot of people that walk down the road. However, it's a beach area, people are gonna walk. So at our last meeting, this was on our agenda, and at that time, we talked a lot about safety, and then we talked about sidewalk. And at that time, I agreed to the sidewalk, thinking, well, you know, I just made this big presentation about the safety, and now here's someone that says, oh, a sidewalk would help. But since then, I've given it a lot more thought, and I do not think that a sidewalk would be the solution to our problem. I think, like you said, that it would create many more problems than what it would solve. Number one, parking, and I did state this last time, that parking is a big issue down there. And if you put a sidewalk in, with as many cars as we try to jam in there sometimes, and everybody's backing out, I think, especially if you're on a slope, you may not be able to see people on that sidewalk, and I think it would create more of a hazard than it would to resolve this problem. So I think we'd be better off not to do the sidewalk. I think we need to really reconsider that and think of another location, perhaps that a sidewalk would be more appropriate. However, I do think that we need to go to the drawing board, Ms. Pemberton, and see and weigh, and Kenneth, and weigh all the options of what kind of safety measures would work. And I know you talk about speed bumps, and when we've mentioned speed bumps before, you'll have just as many people against speed bumps as you will something else. So, you know, and I've talked to the sheriff before, and they have had a presence down there, but like was stated, they can't spend all their time right there on Keaton Beach Drive. They have other things to do. So we do need, really need to come up with some solutions that we can put in place to solve this problem. But I do not believe that a sidewalk is going to be the answer.
I
Thank you.
Jim?
I believe if we put the speed limit down real low and put one of those signs that when you come through that sign, it tells you your speed, that would really help down there. That's what I'm thinking.
Double fine.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You know, in Tallahassee, in several places, they got the sign on the bypass, run into the sign. You'll notice it slows people down, everybody in front of you, if you put on brakes. You know, just give them an idea, you know. And then, if we had the speed limit low, Wayne them to make a ticket if they want to do, and that would help too. You know, so that's my feeling on it.
I agree.
Okay, so, Mr. Dudley, as far as the application that we need to submit to FDOT, at this point, does the board need to, number one, obviously make a decision about the sidewalks in Keaton Beach, but then do they also need to pick a different location for the second application? I know at the last meeting, their number one project was the one by the high school. Do we need to ask for a decision about?
From what you relayed to me with respect to the timing of when the grant is required to be submitted, if they can make a decision on the Ash Street one, it's probably smart to give Melody the most time to get her papers in order. If they intend to do a second project, then perhaps at worst, I would say, if you're okay with the second one, pick it for certain. And then at your workshop, decide whether or not you're going to do a second one and decide where that one is. And that's really not much time for her to finish the application, is what she's telling me. She's on the phone, so I guess you could listen.
I'm asking Marcia and Melody.
Melody?
Yeah.
So
Yes.
so if the board makes a decision not to move forward with the sidewalks at Keaton Beach, what do we need to do today in order to have a second project for the application?
Well, we need a tentative decision, and we'll have to hold, the public hearing at the first board meeting in February, but that puts us very pressed for time.
So we'll need a second public hearing to discuss the new project.
The second, yeah, whatever your alternate project is, the second project. I know we're going with Johnson, Strickland, and Ash.
Okay.
From the feedback I'm hearing here, but if you want a second project, we need a tentative decision on what it is. Because we're coming up, on, time limitations.
And understand, she said, if you want a second project, there's no obligation that you have to submit to, but you have the opportunity to submit to.
Correct. And that's why I wanted to bring it up.
Okay.
Okay, so,
Yes.
my first question is, if we submit two, will they accept the two? Or are they gonna choose one over the other?
I'm pretty sure they're competitive, and Melody can respond one way or another, but it would be.
They are competitive, and we have to declare what our primary project is, which, last meeting you determined was Johnson, Strickland, and Ash. But we have to rank our order of priority on which we would prefer. But they are competitive, these are competitive projects.
So in other words, what you're saying then is that if we submit two, one of them would be eliminated? Is that what you're saying?
No, like.
Are they competitive with other counties?
Yes. Just like last year, we had Tehachapi as number one and Pinecrest as number two. They both got funded, but the board itself, we have to declare which, if we only get one project funded, what your priority is.
Okay, so, thank you. So
You're welcome.
we have Johnson, Strickland, and Ash that we approved last time. Of course, we can always change our mind. But I think that if you look at the traffic pattern there and the use of that area, to me, it's still justified to do that sidewalk. But for me, I really don't want to eliminate the second option. I'd like to see another option. And Kenneth, I think that for me to make my decision, it would be, if if y'all could present us with an option and give us the facts in terms of how many people use it, the traffic pattern, the danger, and let us decide from there. So do you have that
Well,
in mind today?
And that's what I had hoped for, that I relayed to Luanda early on, was
We
that.
submitted that at the last meeting. There were 2 more projects that were submitted for consideration. One of them was along West Ash Street from Miller to 19, and that would encompass the entire El Rancho subdivision, correct? And then the third possibility was along Industrial Drive from 19 to either Puckett or possibly along Puckett to the Port Lane. And those weren't necessarily ranked as far as what you thought was most in priority, correct?
Yes.
There were just 3 possibilities.
Yes, and what I was about to say was that I would have preferred, I think, it would have been the most advantageous for us to discuss it in the terms of a workshop, so that you could flesh out all the pros and cons individually, in a less formal setting, to prioritize that. But I looked at, Hank and I kind of looked at the county as a whole and said, and predominantly you focus on the urbanized areas, and said, where do we see there's a means or need to move potential pedestrian traffic? Because it's hard to look at existing usage without looking at, all right, where are they walking along the grass shoulder of the road, or where are they walking in the road? And we don't really have a means other than just local observations to collect that data. Unfortunately here, we can do traffic data, but we don't have a good means to collect pedestrian. So what I did is we said, here's one, here's another, here's another. All of these have the aspiration to connect from a location to a location, so that it's not just kind of a dead-end type segment. And those were the ones that I at least forwarded to, for you guys to consider previously.
At the last meeting, it was brought up by, I think Commissioner English, I believe, but 221. And was that one that you considered, that is a lot of traffic?
But that's not a bad idea if you're talking maybe going to whatever that dollar store is, maybe up on the north end of town, carrying it back down to Jefferson Street. That's probably not a bad segment.
I would think Graves, when I brought this up, it was Graves Drive-In and tied into Ash Street, because, I had a lot of, like I said, not complaints, but just concerns about the folks walking in the highway and folks running out there 55, 60 mile an hour and almost hit these folks at night. Just the idea would be to get the folks off the highway, give them something to walk on, and not have someone, run over someone out the middle.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I mean, that's a very reasonable segment to consider.
I did receive a call. It was great with the idea from Ash Street to Johnson Strip. And they also said, if you go down by the senior center, which is an old Gladstone School.
Yes, sir.
That's where the sidewalk stops. They would like to see that all the way over to 19.
I already have that planned in my Ash Street rehabilitation project.
Okay, Ash Street paving plan.
Yeah. Well, anyway, that,
Yes, sir.
and they wanted me to relate to the board that they appreciate the effort we're gonna put forward this in 2028. I thought it was a good idea.
Okay, so
Go ahead.
I guess moving forward, I guess what we need to do is workshop this for the next workshop, so we can, what do we need to do to move forward?
If I make a mistake, we need to go ahead and get one settled, the Johnson Stripping Road and 221 on Ash Street. Go ahead and settle that, and then the next one would be the workshop. But it was also mentioned in that last meeting, last time, to have that street you're talking about at the beach, a one-way street. I know that didn't fly well, did it? They gotta come out. But that way you would have more real estate that way, okay? If you had safety, really didn't mind making a one-way street, so, yeah, if it don't fly, it don't fly.
So,
Well, let me ask our
But what we need to do now.
Well, Melody, you had indicated earlier that you needed to get started on these grant applications. So if we put the second project possibility on the agenda for the workshop, and then have another public hearing, the first meeting in February, does that give you enough time to complete both applications?
We'll do the best we can. We do whatever's determined at the workshop. We do have to have that public hearing, at the first meeting in February, which, I'll need to know immediately because of the length of time the board requires us to advertise the public hearing. If we do not have a public hearing and a public workshop, we lose, points on the grant. So that is a necessity to do that.
So if the board makes a decision today on one of the projects, then we discuss the second project during the workshop, the board holds a public hearing and makes a decision the first meeting in February, then we submit the grant. Is it due around the 18th of February?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So we have to do it within their gap system, so there is, we need time to get this completed and submitted because of all the attachments that go along with it and all the requirements of the grant.
But if we
In
receive,
addition, Kenneth has to do a cost estimate, and it has to be signed by him on the cost of the project, so he needs some time too.
so if we receive direction from the board on the 25th, then staff can start moving forward with what they need to gather for the grant application, and then the final decision would be made during the public hearing, correct? So you could start on it the
Yeah.
26th. Kenneth, does that give you enough time?
Yes.
Well,
Yes, and keep in mind, we will not be advertising the normal period of time for the public hearing.
so, all of that said, it would be, I don't know that I would want to go the full extent of a detailed cost estimate on the after the 25th, if you're having a public hearing after that, to where that may be all for naught.
Correct.
Because
which is-
the project gets changed. I will say that the Ash Street, El Rancho area, as well as the North 221 area, I would almost flip a coin. But if you guys are of the opinion that those are reasonable ones to consider as a second project, given the fact that we're in the context of a public hearing now, pick one, unless you think there's some rose that's out there that's another one that would be better. And she has better timing. We have a decision post-public hearing. It gives us a little more time to put these things together, and we're not rushed at the last minute.
Which is why we had to follow the timeline that we're in now.
I understand, I just think in going prospectively, a workshop setting is easier to have a free discussion of all the various pros and cons.
James?
further discussion, I'm prepared to make a motion on both projects moving forward.
That's 221?
Yeah, the motion would be to move forward with the Johnson Strip and Ash Street as primary and, secondary as, 221 from Grave Drive in to Ash Street.
Second.
Motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I want to thank the public for coming, because, sometimes we talk up here and we make decisions up here, but our job is, we do have to promote safety, but our job also is to listen to the public. You're the ones that put us here in this position, and we need to listen to y'all, and I appreciate y'all getting up on this cold morning and coming out to express your opinions. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. With that being said, we go to item 8 on the agenda. The board will hold the first public hearing this day at 9:10. Soon after, pass the whole ordinance amendment to Taylor County Code of Ordinance number 5. Criteria accessory structure, flood hazard areas. The second public hearing will be held on February 15, 2022 at 9 a.m.
Thank you.
Thank y'all.
How you girl? Just thankful you're doing
This is a public hearing. Is this a public hearing for the first two? Number 9, on number 8. Is there anyone from the public who would like to speak to number 8?
Danny, do you have any information you could share with the board?
Well, your cover sheet, I tried to summarize as succinctly as possible the impact of it. It's one of those deals where you essentially have to do it, or everybody's flood insurance rates are gonna go up. It's based on the community rating system. They're part of the ISO service. They grade you and they put ways to reduce your rates out of your reach so that they can increase your rate. And this is one of those things they say you have to adopt or you're gonna get graded down, which will impact everyone in the county. And there were dollar numbers in there on the cover sheet also. So, I mean, I find it distasteful, these sort of mandates, and, you know, you have to adopt them. Once you do, they say, well, it's your ordinance, like it was all your fault, you know. But I don't know that we have a choice unless you want to see the insurance rates go up.
We don't want to see it.
Danny, can you clarify, when, with the accessory structures, is that?
Hold on just a minute. Motion to read the ordinance by title only.
Okay.
I'm gonna wait.
Okay. Read by title only, Mr. Bishop.
Well, you have a motion second. They did that, okay. I was waving my arms. Okay, not that I wanna do this, but I'll do it. An ordinance of the Board of County Commissioners of Taylor County, amending the Taylor County Code of Ordinances, Land Development Code, Chapter 42, Article 11, that's Roman numeral, flood damage prevention to provide criteria for agricultural structures and accessory structures in flood hazard areas, to specify elevation of manufactured homes in flood hazard areas, providing for applicability and severability, and providing an effective date.
Okay. Now, after we read about title only, now we have a public hearing, right?
Yes, sir.
All right. It is now open for a public hearing. Anyone from the public would like to speak?
Mr. Chairman, I just have a question.
Go ahead.
Mr. Griner. Regarding the accessory structures and the size, the square foot limitation, folks who have existing structures, will they be grandfathered in, or is this strictly for new?
In my opinion, they would be grandfathered in. This would be permitted.
Okay, and the same for the mobile home elevation?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
To me, that's just a given.
Seeing there's no one from the public, is anyone on the call?
I want to see anything first.
Okay, this being
That being said though now, I guess the verbiage could state accessory structures constructed after a particular date.
Well, that
So
was
that
my
that's
question.
abundantly clear.
Right, does that need to be clarified within the ordinance?
Not for me, but.
Yeah, you can pass the ordinance, should be all right.
Okay.
Of course, this is the first reading, you have a second one.
and that's when we got the vote, right? The
Right.
second one. Okay, we just closed the public hearing. Okay, Gary?
So the second
Hearing on this will be Tuesday, February the 15th, 2022 at 9 a.m.
Okay. All right. Is there anything else for this particular order? We will go to the constitutional officer of the government of units.
There are 2 openings on the TCDA board due to the expiration of the appointments of Mr. Don Everett Jr. and Mr. Wallace Holmes. There were 3 applications that were received. One application was received in October for Mr. Travis Anthony. TCDA staff has reached out to the applicant to see if he was still interested in being appointed and have received no response.
So we have 2 that's complete and ready to go.
Motion to approve Mr. Everett, Mr. Holmes.
Second.
Motion second, all in favor? Go ahead, get it. County staff, number 10, board to consider approval of proposed submission for the fiscal year 2026 Florida Department of Transportation, FDOT, scrap, stock, CGIF, and tripway. And the agenda by Kenneth Beck.
So this is our annual solicitation, or the DOT's annual solicitation that we're responding to. If you went through the agenda item that I provided to you, you'd see that last year we submitted Industrial Drive, Plantation, and Dark Island. Industrial Drive was programmed, Plantation and Dark Island were not. So my first recommendation would be that we retain those for this sequential submission. They typically want to have a submission of 3 projects. So typically, we would take and look at the overall listing of eligible roads, and then based on that original severity index, we just go down to the very next one. I have put a 3rd road on here, and I put it on there as actually the top priority, as opposed to, and I feel it has a better importance than, not from the people who use it, but from an overall community standpoint, than the 2 that we submitted last year. And I say that because of, 1, the overall usage of that roadway, its connectivity from community to community, and the condition that I see that road beginning to exhibit. So I'm starting to see some cracks emerging within some of the ruts or the wheel paths. So you're having some delamination in those that we fixed just around Dead Man's Curve in that area. So my worry is thinking that this program is not tomorrow's dollars, it is 5 years from now dollars, and I don't foresee that the vehicle usage or the usage of that roadway is going to change anytime in the next 5 years unless it worsens. That I think we would be reasonable and proactive if we were to take and recognize that this is one that's going to be of such a magnitude in money that we'd be smart to go ahead and put it on there. I don't know that they'll program it because it is competitive within the context of District 2. If you recall back, Spring Warrior was a 7 mile, just under a 7 mile road. It was programmed at a hair over 7 million. This is 35 miles. So you're seeing that it would take a lion's share of District 2's allocation just to award this one road. But I think it's important enough to get that in front of District 2's eyes to show them that this is a road that we feel is utmost importance to our community. If you guys can't program it this year, understand that this one is needing to be programmed. So that's why I'm suggesting that it needs to be a priority 1. And I'm not going to tell you that I think that they'll award it this time or under this program, but I at least want it to be in your guys' minds and District 2's minds that it needs to be addressed. Because like they were recognizing with respect to us on the sidewalk project, these are dollars that are 5 years from now, it's not dollars that are today.
What's the road?
Beach road.
Beach Road.
I'm sorry, I thought it's,
And that's, Beach Road, is that gonna be from, Highway 19 all the way through Steenhatchee?
I went ahead and put the full length of it like we did the first time, and that's picking up at 19 and you're ending right there at Roy's.
Okay.
Cause that's where, what is termed now First Avenue connects to it. You know, where if it got to the point that, maybe like Slaughter Road, you know, they approached us and said, look guys, we don't have enough money to do this, but if you were to split it, you know, we can fund part of it. And if I did that, I would split it at Fish Creek where when I designed it the first time, there's different segments of the road that have different traffic patterns. Obviously from Fish Creek to Steenhatchee is your lowest level of traffic. That got a different cross section, so I would want to at least catch from the Fish Creek curve back up to 19 as being my primary section. Even that's 20 miles.
Go ahead.
I always respect your opinion, I want you to know that.
You tell me that before you tell me this year.
Well, I'm not disagreeing that it needs to be done, but I'll tell you, every time I'm on Plantation Road, I slow down real slow. The road is narrow, it's breaking off on the sides. You go around that curve, you get run off of the road. And it's a short road, and there's a lot of traffic on that road.
And I don't disagree.
I'm really mixed because I'm really afraid of Plantation Road.
And understand, I don't disagree with you, and I think that's why the board recognized that and put it on last year's priority. And we still recognize that, and we're putting it on this year's priority. And from my perspective, it's the least work path, because I have already updated the cost estimates for Plantation and Dark Island, because the old days of just sending the list in and DOT funding it are over. I have to literally do a very detailed breakdown of all my costs, and that's what you have to live by. So when we go to build it later, if we don't have enough funds, it's my fault, it's not theirs. So, and that's why we're still including it. So we're not saying that Beach Road needs to be the only road that we address. We are saying that we are aware, very much aware, that this road is in a condition that 5 years from now, it's going to be at the point where we don't want it to be a major repair. We'd much rather it be a mill and resurface, put new shoulders or put paved shoulders on the side of it, and address that road for the next 20 years, which it's coming up on that. And anytime we do the design, we get in that mindset of our estimated service life is typically a 20-year time frame. We don't have the money to do a 20-year cycle on all our roads. That's why we need to recognize the ones that are of the kind of the vital ones to our community. We need to at least address those. That's the only reason I'm saying that I think it should be number one. And I don't necessarily think they're going to program it, but I really want to emphasize the fact that it needs to be considered soon.
Well, that's in your district, Plantation, so.
I look at it as from a county basis, guys, not district.
Right, I'm just saying that so he could speak to it.
There's a lot more traffic going in than there ever been. Especially through 27 and 19, it's just solid traffic. I mean, I noticed that. And it is getting bad shape. And the other road in my district, that's Industrial Park, needs it bad. It needs fixing.
It's already programmed.
It's programmed, I know, just like the Spring Mortgage program.
Yes, sir.
And that's a dangerous road. When a school bus meets a boat coming from the Spring Mortgage program, the school bus or the boat won't have to put off the road, you know. But Plantation is an issue. I mean, it's a safety issue. They don't have a lot of wrecks on it, but it's a lot of traffic. And the road gets in bad shape, you know.
And I don't disagree, and I say that that's why we're putting it on this list again, is because we recognize that importance. If I didn't, I wouldn't suggest it even be on this list. I'm literally just standing here, guys, to tell you that you have a potential $30 million asset out there that's going to be that's gonna require a huge investment, say if we waited 10 years from now, to where we'll be back to reconstruction. I don't know if you guys used that roadway when I rebuilt it the first time, but from Fish Creek to Steinhatchee was a dirt road. I took it all the way back to dirt and reconstructed it. We moved all the head walls out. I've done a lot of the infrastructure, but you've still got 35 miles, 36 miles worth of roadway that I just see it as, when I start seeing cracks in our wheel paths and delamination, I know it's a matter of time before it begins to rut and begins to peel off. So I'd like to stay ahead of the curve and say, it may be a fantastic time to build back better stuff, may just throw money at us and say, hey, do you have any programs that we can put on this? Absolutely. Here's $30 million, let's do that. So I just think it needs to be in front of people's eyes and in front of your minds to consider that this is one that needs to be remembered before we have to pay much more.
And that's not saying, I mean, put it in front of their eyes, that's still not saying, hey, we can't move, they're not gonna program a 35-mile stretch or even half of that stretch to Fish Creek, but hey, we'll do Plantation Road, that's not really.
The way they look at it now is they only tell us to submit three jobs, and they do tell us to prioritize them. But then they look at that and they score them internally, and then, yes, sir, they look at the overall mix, and they do kind of spread the wealth. So they're not going to program all three of ours. They're gonna look at, well, if I do Beach Road, I can't do anything else in these other 5 counties. But next year, let me go ahead and catch back up and put Beach Road in there, and I'll throw these other 2 in here because I could do those 2 and still program a job in 5 other counties.
Right.
So they look at that kind of district-wide.
Right, I just didn't want to miss an opportunity to get one of the 3 done.
You're not going to.
Okay.
Not unless they lose their funding, they're gonna catch one most every time. And they're very cognizant of what we are telling them is we feel is important. And they try to honor that as best they can with the funds they have available.
I still love you, but, I'm gonna have to go with Temptation Road.
Me too. I'm feeling bad.
Well, as I told my supervisor, my boss, our job is to provide you with the technical information and try to help you make the most informed decision. What you do to that, your decision. You don't have to like it.
Thank you, Kevin. We appreciate it.
I still love you too.
Okay, thank you.
And I would only ask
That's only
that.
2 of us, so I don't know how it's gonna turn out, that spoke up, but, you know, I just, yeah, you know,
Let's have a
I
skill.
understand.
Let's have a draw. That'd be great.
I'm willing, let me tell you my feeling about this. I believe I could swallow $1 million, or $750 million, over $30 million, or $20 million, or $10 million.
Okay, but what I'm suggesting to you is I don't want you to swallow that pill.
Yeah.
I want that to come from somewhere else.
So we need a motion of any sort?
Y'all need to, what we need is, I have to submit this by January 28th, I think it is. I believe it is, or somewhere in that neighborhood. I only have like a week or so to get this done, so I have to know what you want me to submit.
I make a motion to submit the plan as Mr. Dudley has laid out.
All right, second that one.
Okay, we got a motion, by, Commissioner English, and we got a second by Commissioner, Demps. All in favor say aye. All opposed, same sign. Aye. So we have a tied vote. So does this have to come back to the next meeting then?
I
We don't have
to do
time.
that.
Actually, the deadline's the 21st, according to your notes, which is,
Yeah, I knew it was, I only have just a
Yeah, you
few
only
days
have a
to
few
submit
days.
this.
Well, I just, you know, what you're saying, but I feel like that, to me, Plantation Road is more dangerous. Now, I see what you're saying in terms of funding and all of that, but if I look at the immediate right now, I don't feel like the beach road where you're talking about is as dangerous as Plantation. I was on that road yesterday, and I met a big truck, and actually, my wheels, I had to get off of that road, and I'm thinking, this road is so narrow, it's been needing to be resurfaced and widened for a long time. And I can tell you, I've had people that have called me, and I don't know about you, Commissioner Moody, but I've had people from that area there to call me and say, why don't y'all resurface and widen Plantation? I have not had anybody from the other areas to call me, so I have to stick by, my feeling that for public safety right now, even though with what you're saying, it may not be the best decision, but for public safety, I have to say Plantation would still be my number one choice.
Yes, ma'am.
If we have to make a decision now, I'll decision and go with Plantation.
Okay, so maybe let me just ask for a little clarification.
Yeah.
So if you're suggesting to go with Plantation as being the number one priority, then are you flipping Beach Road and Plantation? Are you putting Beach Road at number 3? Or are you taking Beach Road off? I just need to know this overall sequence.
Well,
If you still want it on there, my workload doesn't change whether it's first, second, or
For
third.
me, it would be Plantation would be first, and then I don't know, Commissioner Moody, about the safety on industrial. I have to look at.
Industrial is already programmed. It's not even on the
Okay,
list.
within Beach Road, Plantation, Beach Road, and industrial?
No. Dark Island.
Huh?
Industrial is already programmed.
It's already
That's why it's not on the
Okay, then
list.
Plantation and Beach Road,
Just the two.
And then,
Dark Island.
Yeah.
Dark Island would be third.
Dark Island's not a safety issue, really.
The only thing I was considering on Dark Island was, and what I did consider in the original cost estimate was to do some shoulder stiffening in the area of the boat ramp, because recognizing how much of that is utilized for parking on the edge of that road, is to maybe use a geocell type material to strengthen, to allow for vehicles to park on it.
Because people go parking on that road and get worse and worse, ditching.
Yeah, they're doing it now, it's just recognizing that, let's make it strong enough to support that. And I did put in some wetland mitigation, dollars in there, so, that's stuff I've recognized on Dark Island whenever we do submit for it, which we submitted last year, we just didn't get it permitted.
But as far as safety, I'm a fan on that whole thing, because Dark Island is not a safety issue, it's just a needed issue to help folks in parking and all.
Well, and realize, guys, that there was this overall list of candidate projects. It started from the ones that were originally state roads that were transferred to ownership of the county. And we started at the worst, being the most severe, which was Beach Road. That was my very first project. And then we've gone down that list sequentially. So Dark Island, I'm not bringing it to you as I foresee it's a safety concern, but on the severity index, it's just in that sequence to be replaced.
Okay. Mr. Bishop, would it be proper procedure at this time for me to make another motion?
Make a motion to amend your motion.
I would like to make a,
you did.
Or just clarify.
Yeah, I would just like to say, hey, I, went with the goal of what Mr. Dudley had laid out, because I understand what Mr. Dudley is saying, is the importance of putting this beach road project in front of the right folks. I think ideally, he's probably thinking that, hey, we're not gonna get it, but it's important to get in front of their eyes, that they can see that, what we are looking at in the near future, but something not to jump up on us and, get caught with our pants down. And think ideally that we're thinking, we know that Plantation is gonna be probably our pick, will be our pick, so.
That's what I'm thinking is gonna get awarded.
That's why I went with Mr. Dudley and what he brought to us, so anyway, I just wanted to clear there.
So you amend that motion?
Yeah, I'll amend the motion to.
Well,
And I said,
make a motion to amend your motion.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to amend my motion to go with, Plantation, Beach Road, and, Dark Island.
Second.
I said. Okay, now, what do we make a motion to? All in favor? Aye. Plantation number one?
I'll put Plantation as number one, I'll put Beach Road as number two,
Beach Road number
and
two,
then
Dark Island number
leave
three.
Dark Island as number three.
You need a motion to do that.
Okay, I'll make a motion for Plantation one, Beach Road two, and Dark Island three.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you, guys.
All right, mosquito control.
Mr. Womble was unable to attend the meeting this morning, so I will be presenting this item for this department. Heather Jensen, who is our current environmental services superintendent, has been acting in the role as mosquito control coordinator since March of 2021, when our previous coordinator resigned. Prior to that period, she was superintendent of that department and provided assistance with mapping, tracking, scheduling, and counts. Per the guidance from the state, we fall under the Tier 3 program. So what we are asking the board to do is to approve us requesting the state make her the mosquito control director. She would be replacing me, I'm the interim director now, and she would be given 6 months to study for and take her exam. And at that time, a permanent appointment would be made.
Okay, so we need a motion for that.
Motion.
Motion second. Motion second, all in favor? Aye. Go ahead, you got that. Number 11?
Next item on the agenda, again, I can't speak for Super Puff. No one from Super Puff could attend the meeting this morning due to another issue. So what I'm doing is presenting the annual status report for economic ad valorem tax exemption for Super Puff snacks. You can see in your packet, they did submit their annual report. This is for calendar year 2021. They did receive the exemption in 2021, and according to their report, they created 160 jobs since 2019, with more anticipated. And I included statements from our property appraiser and of course, a report from Super Puff in the original application.
So they did exceed what they said.
The only question I had, and I don't know that I have the exact answer, they did promise back in 2019 that they would install $20 million worth of equipment. According to the property appraiser for 2021, the value of their equipment was, I think, $19.1 million. And they received a TPP return in 2021 and an assessment of $19.1 million was applied. I don't have the exact number at this time. They would file another return, I believe it's due April 1st. But I know they have installed quite a bit of, they have made a number of improvements.
And they still working on that.
Yes, sir.
I'd be curious to know, I wish one of them were here to know that out of these 150 new jobs, how many are bust in and how many are?
Well, and if you wish, you can, they did submit the report prior to January 31st, which is what is in the ordinance. Mr. Bishop, can this item be tabled until the next meeting so the board can ask Super Puff representatives if they have any questions?
I think it's appropriate.
I think I got somewhere 70% of the people they employed look.
That's what they state in the report.
Yeah, I'm not saying, it may not be necessarily a table now, I'm just asking the question
because they're giving local people, you know, the.
The chance.
But if they cannot find enough of employees to run their operation, then bust them in. I mean, if that's what it takes, I sure don't want the plant to go under because they can't, find enough employees, and that's happening across our country where places are folding because they don't have the labor. So yes, I want our Taylor County people to have the first, you know, to be considered first, but after that, they gotta stay in business.
You know, and I talked to a fellow last week, what was driving this truck that pulled those trailers from plant to the home. He said, he quit. Why you quit? I'm gonna wait me too much.
I'd say they need to be legal, the people that they bring in need to be legal.
Eventually, some of those people come to town too.
I mean, I'm not telling them to do their job, I'm sure they are reaching out to surrounding counties, where folks go there, drive to work.
Okay, so what we need to do?
I don't know that you need to take any action. I believe that if the board were to find that they were not meeting the criteria, then you could consider repealing the ordinance, but I don't know that that's what I'm hearing. I don't know that that's the case.
So we need to have Mr. Armour to come back and talk.
I
want to represent.
I wouldn't want to, they take an inch now, I wouldn't want them to take a mile and really put it on the line with that. But I'm like you, we keep close enough to 20 million to be set, you know.
Correct, but the TPP value was 19.1 million. At the time they filed their return.
They put a lot of people to work, I'm proud of them, they're doing good.
I think we're fortunate to have them, that they relocated here, and, I really appreciate their presence, and, let them keep going.
Yeah, that was
One
something.
thing I've had a problem is that motel down there where they got their people staying, working there, around here. And that trash out front of it, had a lot of people calling me,
Yeah.
you know.
But that's a city thing right there.
I know they were calling me, and I conveyed it to the city, and they did do something about it, but they need to stay in behind it.
You know, before they came, we looked at them, and we asked them to come. And I hate to get them in the mood.
Oh, yeah, we need them,
So we
we're
need-
going here, so let's don't mess with them.
Okay.
Mr. Bishop, do we need a motion for the board to accept the report?
I think so.
I'll make that motion that we accept the report.
I'll say,
Motion second, all in favor?
Uh,
Aye. Go ahead.
Thank you.
County Administrator.
So under informational items, I just wanted to inform the board that we received the signed contract from Department of Corrections for our inmate work squad. After the Sheriff's Office correctional officers receive their training, they will be picking up the inmates from Taylor Correctional for duty. I do want to give thanks to Representative Schoaf for assisting us in obtaining the signatures for that contract. They had the contract for 2 months, and I did not receive an answer from them or a response via email or telephone calls, and I did reach out to Representative Schoaf and ask him to assist if he could, and I received the signed contract back for them to us.
how long will it take the training that you're still?
I believe it's a 40-hour course. So, when I spoke with the undersheriff, he said that they were looking at a target date of February 1st. And I responded, well, I understand that I'd really like the target date to be January 1st. So just as soon as possible, we definitely need, that labor force.
So that then will give us the sheriff's, department, we'll have them, so we'll have 2 crews then? Is that what
Yes,
we're at?
We'll have our 2 paid crews, and one of them will be staffed by our local jail inmates, and the other will be staffed by DOC inmates.
The sooner the better.
Yes, ma'am, we're very excited about that. The only other item I have is just to remind the board that myself and Commissioner Downs will be attending Florida Association of Counties Legislative Day tomorrow. We do have appointments with our legislators to discuss funding requests and any other pertinent items we need to discuss with them. If there's anything in particular you feel like we need to take to them, please just let me know.
I'm still real concerned about home rule. When I read the paper this morning, it's even more frightening what they're talking about.
Yes.
Unbelievable. They don't need to do that.
We can put that on the list. We also will be bringing to our legislators the issue that we're having with DEP permitting as it relates to environmental permitting and mitigation for our road projects. You'll recall that the engineer brought to the board, I believe a couple of meetings ago, the issue that we're having on Slaughter Road. We've been waiting for a year for our permitting. And so that is something that I had on my list that the chairperson and I could discuss with our legislators. And we can certainly discuss home rule and our funding projects that we've submitted.
We don't, we're right here next to the people. And we know our community. And we need to be able to still pass our ordinances without fear that we're gonna be sued or fined. That's ridiculous. Did you read that this morning?
I did.
What do you think?
And for us, the Association of Counties has realized that that is a consideration.
And I know that they're talking to them in the cities, but that didn't seem, from what I read, didn't faze them. Or at least that was my interpretation.
Well, there's a whole list that I got in by email from the league, and also there was 2 lists of what they're doing that's going to be affecting municipalities and counties. And it's very copious. It's something that you might want to look at. Because what they're doing is they call that they were stop road counties commissions and road city councils from passing legislation. And I think, this is just me talking, I think what they're trying to do is trying to lock everybody into the same thing that folks down in South Florida are doing, because in South Florida, they've got commissions that really want to do things that people on the other side don't want. And so we get caught up in the middle of it, and they're saying, okay, we're going to say the whole state, you all can't do that. And there's things that counties and municipalities have been handling ever since. And like Mr. Field said, y'all are the ones that are close to the people. Prime example is this morning. A prime example.
Well, one shoe doesn't fit all. And I think back when I was first elected, the septic tank thing statewide was a big issue, where they were trying to make every county, put in all these rules and regulations, because down south they had some counties that were really causing issues, and so we really fought that. And I feel like this is the same kind of stuff. We need to stand up against this, because it just doesn't fit us.
Excuse me, we will definitely mention that to them.
Okay.
And that's all I have.
Thank you.
Anyone on the line from the public? Commissioner Key?
I don't have anything. I just appreciate what everybody's doing.
Fine.
I'd just like to thank Ms. Lawanda and Sheriff for efforts in organizing these work squads, because I know that's been a ongoing battle for them, and all from the fly in just about one day. So appreciate her and Sheriff doing their efforts and putting these squads together. And I think it'll be a big difference, take a lot of weight off a lot of people's shoulders and get that work done. Appreciate all the people coming, sometimes we get up here and, like Commissioner Green said, we get up here and talk, make decisions, and hey, we're here for it, to hear from the folks, from the people, and what they want. So, appreciate them coming and helping us better define that sidewalk project.
That's right, and you know, you mentioned, the sheriff's spot and everything, this past, last Friday, I was on Lyman Hendry Road, and there was a big pile of trash and a mattress, I mean, some big stuff, and it was, the mattress was over into the road. So I got in touch with LaWanda, and I said, you know, we need to get this up, and so the sheriff's department went right away, and they got that stuff, because I felt like it could be dangerous with that mattress in the road like that, so please tell them how much I really appreciate their quick response in helping us with that. So, I agree with you on being very appreciative.
Mr. Bishop?
Two things. Number one, I'm sure you're all aware that I got sued. They asked for a jury trial. The our insurance company, won't hire a lawyer for us, they won't do anything for us, so I'll be defending us in that particular case. And we'll defend it as vigorously as possible. It'll be a long drawn out thing, but, I think we've got good points on that. And then secondly, I got a contract that the Curtis Law Firm is doing the closing on the Dead Man Square properties, and we're going to be sending that to Ms. Rutzer and get that. We'll have to check issued, get a deed, and go forward. So that's where we're at on that. So I just want to inform y'all that.
All right. With that being said, we'll go ahead.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor? Yeah. What time I need?
So you been hunting?
Yeah.
Yeah. Got you going on. Yeah. Good. I was going down 19 yesterday, Tallahassee, and there was two within 100 yards of people that run over. Is that where you hit your tail on 19?
I did it on 19, well, it hit me, that gun, I'm not saying. I was like 10 miles north of the station, the bus station. I just drive along, you know.
I hadn't heard from her since,
You know, so I stopped, and I thought, I better go back and check to see that wasn't a person.
she said,
So I backed up on nothing, there was nothing coming, and I was looking at my screen. It was a doe. But the most funny thing about it, I decided I was going to get him as soon as I could, so I turned left on the Ash Street, to the the guy stopped me because one of my lights, my left front light was there. He said, how you doing? I said, I'm doing good. I said, they have a deer ran into me. I thought the light was out. I said, well, I guess it is. So he didn't give me a ticket. He didn't give me a ticket. I told him, I said, you know, I'll hire me a good lawyer like that. So I'm dealing with getting it fixed, trying to get around, and not going out at night, you know, going anywhere.
Makes you go up fast.
Yeah.
My wife just got a new hood put on her car. Her hood.
I mean, it's a Senate.
Yeah. Well, you sure you didn't get two of them? Because like you said, there was two like right there, that wasn't really stretched.
The estimate's over 6 grand. Well, yeah.
He said he'd be,
I don't mind getting involved.
$53,000 for this truck. $52,000. He went up there and
Hot dog.
yeah, sell it. Hey, buy this truck, you should know. What you gonna get for this? Come back.
No, I said.
That's all right,
That's all right. Hey,
You know,
he's out there putting out the wrong thing.
Yeah. I won't make it through that one.
Well, I know what.
Yeah. I want to do it.
I don't know that until what all smart.
Just cause the word.
Yeah, the one, that's good.
I'm just taking them a day at a time.
Yeah.
Whatever is in store for me is in store, and I accept it either way. I'm
Okay,
fine.
but it does say you need to work some too.
I'm fine, either way. If
All right.
somebody wants my job and gets my job, they can have it, and I'll be happy.
Yeah.
If I keep it, I'll be happy too.
Exactly.
Anyway, fine with me.
Okay.
I'm so at peace.
Hey, I didn't need it, so. I need to check to see if we even turned the heater on, it's cold in here.
Still cold like that?